The argument began the way they always did, over something utterly trivial. It was a Saturday morning, and I simply needed to run to the hardware store. I was in the middle of building shelves for my home office and realized I'd bought the wrong screws. The keys to our only car, a nice SUV, were sitting on the entryway tray, exactly where my wife, Amelia, insisted they always be kept. I picked them up, called out that I'd be back in an hour, and headed for the door. "Where do you think you're going?" Her voice cut through the air from the top of the stairs, sharp, commanding, dripping with authority. She stood there, arms crossed, looking down at me not like a partner, but like a school principal about to hand out detention to a misbehaving student. "To the hardware store," I replied, doing my best to keep my tone even. "I need the right screws for the shelves." She descended the stairs slowly, her eyes locked on the keys in my hand. "Did you ask me if you could take the car?" I just stared at her for a beat. The question was so absurd it almost made me laugh. I'm a 2-year-old man. I'm a partner at a respected architectural firm. I don't need to request permission to go buy a few screws. "It's times our times, car, Amelia," I said, already feeling my patience thinning. "It's times my times, car," she shot back with a small, smug smirk. "The registration is in my name. The insurance is in my name. Your name isn't on a single document related to that vehicle. Using it is a privilege for you, not a right." Technically, she wasn't wrong. When we bought the SUV 3 years ago, her father, Richard, a financial planner who manages all our money, advised that, for tax reasons, it made more sense to title it solely in her name. Like a fool, I agreed just to avoid a fight. I'd paid the down payment from my personal savings, and the monthly payments came out of our joint account, which my salary overwhelmingly funded. But on paper, the car belonged to her, and now she was wielding that piece of paper like a weapon. "I need to go to the store," I repeated, my voice growing firmer. She simply held out her hand. "The keys, Michael." I didn't move. We just stood there, locked in a silent standoff. This wasn't really about the car, and we both knew it. It was about control. It had always been about control, her dictating how we spent money, who we socialized with, even what temperature the thermostat was set to. This was just the most blatant display of it yet. Finally, her voice rose, sharp and final. "No car keys until you learn to ask for permission." I am times not times having this same argument every single weekend. I looked at her outstretched hand, then at the keys, then back at her face. Her expression was cold, utterly devoid of warmth or partnership. And that was it. Something inside me settled. A decision I'd been circling for years finally snapped into place with terrifying clarity. This marriage wasn't just unhappy, it was a cage. And she had just rattled the bars one last time. I didn't yell. I didn't argue. I placed the keys gently into her palm. "Sure," I said. My voice was calm, almost unnervingly flat. "You're right, I should have asked." The look of pure, triumphant victory that spread across her face was almost theatrical. She thought she'd won. She thought she'd finally put me in my place. With a self-satisfied smile, she turned and walked back upstairs, leaving me standing in the foyer like a grounded teenager. She had no idea she hadn't just won a petty argument. She had just triggered an avalanche. Asterisk. Asterisk. Update 1. Asterisk. Asterisk. That weekend was strange. I played the role of the compliant, obedient husband to perfection. I finished the shelves using the wrong screws, wobbly, uneven, but functional. The rest of the time, I stayed in my office, reading quietly. Whenever Amelia wanted to go out to the grocery store, to brunch at her parents', I politely asked, "May I come with you?" She loved it. She strutted around like royalty, graciously granting me the privilege of riding shotgun in the car I'd helped pay for. But while I acted defeated on the surface, my mind was racing at full speed. Look, I'm an architect. My entire profession is built on identifying structural weaknesses before a building collapses. And our marriage? It was a condemned structure, riddled with rot. It was time to plan the demolition. On Monday morning, she drove me to work a new ritual she'd started that felt as humiliating as you'd imagine. "I'll pick you up at 5:30, she said, sounding eerily like my mother dropping me off at elementary school. The second I stepped into my office, I went into motion. Asterisk, asterisk. First priority, independence. Asterisk, asterisk. At lunch, I walked to a car dealership near my office. I didn't want another SUV. I wanted something that was times mine, times something she'd always dismissed as impractical. I test drove a sleek sports sedan I'd coveted for years and leased it on the spot using funds from my personal savings. Account. The dealership promised delivery to my office garage by end of day. Asterisk, asterisk. Second priority. Sever the financial tether. Asterisk, asterisk. After the dealership, I visited a completely different bank, one Amelia and her father had no connection to. I opened a new checking account, a new savings account, and a new investment account, all solely in my name. Back at the office, I logged into my company's HR portal and redirected my entire paycheck to these new accounts. That was the end of my income flowing into the joint accounts, controlled by Amelia and her father. Asterisk, asterisk. Third and most critical priority, assess the damage. Asterisk, asterisk. For years, I'd let Richard manage our finances. He's a partner at a small wealth management firm and had convinced me he could generate superior returns. In a moment of misplaced trust, I'd even granted him power of attorney over my personal investment portfolio. The one I'd built over a decade times before, times I ever met Amelia. Now, I suspected that trust had been catastrophically misplaced. I spent the rest of the afternoon on the phone with my lawyer, Ben, a relentless, razor-sharp attorney who specializes in high-asset, high-conflict divorces. I told him everything. Ben didn't sugarcoat it. "Revoke his power of attorney times immediately asterisk," he said, "and get an independent forensic audit of every account he's ever touched. This is going to get ugly." That evening, I waited on the curb as Amelia pulled up. She wore that same smug expression. "Ready to go home?" she asked sweetly. "Actually," I said, "I think I'll drive myself." Right on cue, a flatbed truck from the dealership rolled into our driveway. Strapped to the back was my new car, a black sedan, low, aggressive, gleaming under the streetlights. The driver hopped out and handed me the keys. Amelia stood frozen, mouth slightly open, eyes wide with disbelief as they unloaded my car. It wasn't just shock or anger I saw in her face. It was times fear asterisk. The kind of fear a queen feels when she realizes a pawn has just crossed the board and become a queen herself. "What is that?" she finally stammered. "That," I said, holding up my new keys, "is times my times car, so I don't have to ask for permission anymore." I slid into the driver's seat. The scent of new leather filled the cabin, clean, powerful, mine. I glanced over at her, still sitting stunned in her SUV. I gave her a small, polite wave and drove off, watching her shrink in my rearview mirror. The first bomb had detonated. Asterisk, asterisk. Update 2. Asterisk, asterisk. The drive home was exhilarating. I just listened to the engine hum, a sound far more soothing than the icy silence I'd grown used to at home. When I pulled into the driveway, Amelia was already there, having clearly broken every traffic law to beat me home. She stood on the porch, arms crossed, face flushed with fury. "We need to talk," she said, voice low and tight. "Okay," I replied, and walked right past her into the house. She followed, slamming the front door behind her. "You bought a car? A times $60,000 times car? Without even times discussing times it with me?" "Leased it, actually," I corrected calmly. "And you're right, I didn't discuss it. I made a decision. I need a reliable way to get to work, especially now that my access to the other car has become conditional." "Conditional?" she snapped. "I just wanted you to times ask asterisk." It's common courtesy, Michael. No, Amelia, I said, finally turning to face her. It's control. And I'm done playing along. This new car is just the first of many changes around here. The anger on her face vanished instantly, replaced by something far more telling. Panic. She paled. What does that mean? It means I had a very productive conversation with my lawyer today, I said evenly. And my new bank manager. I'm taking full control of my finances. My paycheck is no longer going into the joint account. And I've formally revoked your father's power of attorney over my investment portfolio. Mentioning Richard was a direct strike. She actually flinched. You can't do that. My father is our financial advisor. He has a long-term strategy for us. He has a strategy for times himself. Asterisk. I countered. One that involves risky, opaque investments using times money. I've requested a full forensic audit of every account he's managed. I'm very curious to see what we uncover. She stood there, utterly silent. The car was gone. Now the money was slipping through her fingers. Her entire system of control was crumbling in a matter of hours. The next few days were a silent war inside our home. She refused to speak to me, slamming doors and having loud, heated phone calls with her mother. I didn't care. I was too busy. A team of forensic accountants was combing through years of Richard's records, and what they were finding was alarming. He'd been churning my accounts, making excessive trades solely to generate commissions for his firm. He'd sunk a massive portion of my portfolio into a tech startup that imploded, a company he secretly co-owned. He wasn't just mismanaging my assets, he was stealing from me. The real bombshell came a week later. The auditors discovered wire transfers from my investment account to a shell company I'd never heard of. That company, it turned out, owned the mortgage on her parents' house. Richard had used over $200,000 of times money to pay off times his own times home. Armed with the audit report, I was ready. I told Amelia to have her parents at our house Saturday morning for an urgent financial discussion. I instructed her to bring their lawyer. I also informed her that my lawyer, Ben, would be present. They arrived acting offended and defiant. Richard swaggered in like he owned the place, already blustering about breach of trust and ingratitude. I didn't say a word. I let Ben take the floor. Ben was a shark in a tailored suit. Calmly, methodically, he laid out the evidence. Charts, transaction records, copies of the illicit wire transfers. He explained in plain language the legal definitions of *** investment fraud, *** embezzlement, *** and *** breach of fiduciary duty, ***. As Ben spoke, Richard's face drained from red to a sickly gray. His bluster evaporated. Sweat beaded on his forehead. Amelia's mother looked like she might faint. Amelia just stared at the table, horrified. When Ben finished, he slid a document across the table. A separation and settlement agreement. Here's the deal, Ben said coolly. Michael is willing to times not times press criminal charges against you, Richard. He's also willing to times not times sue your firm into bankruptcy, which you would unquestionably lose. In exchange, you will repay every penny you stole, plus interest. Amelia will sign this agreement waiving all rights to alimony and any claim on Michael's assets. Her name will be removed from the deed to this house. She leaves with only her personal belongings. Nothing else. Their lawyer, clearly out of his depth, tried to argue about marital property. Ben just smiled. Are you times sure? Times you want to go down that road? Because my next call is to the district attorney. Your client is looking at times 10 years, times in federal prison. And his daughter, she could be charged as an accessory. Your choice. Asterisk. Final update. Asterisk. The negotiation was over before it began. Faced with prison, they folded instantly. Richard, it turned out, had just enough hidden assets to repay me in full. He had to sell properties and liquidate his own investments, but the entire amount, with interest, was wired into my account within days. Amelia signed the papers without protest. She had no leverage left. The day she moved out was eerily quiet. She packed her things in silence, her face a mask of bitter resignation. No tears, no shouting. I think she was simply exhausted. The game of control she and her father had played for years had finally ensnared them both. Last I heard, her parents were forced to sell their large home and downsize to a modest condo. With my money gone and Richard's reputation destroyed, their lavish lifestyle collapsed overnight. His firm is under investigation, and he'll likely lose his professional license. Amelia now lives with them. She had to take a job as a sales associate at a department store, living a life she never imagined, stripped of the financial safety net she'd always taken for granted. A few months ago, I was driving home late from the office in my new car. I stopped at a red light and glanced to my left. There it was, her old SUV. She was behind the wheel. Our eyes met for just a second. She didn't look angry. She didn't look defiant. She just looked empty. The light turned green. She didn't move. I simply drove away, leaving her sitting there in the car she'd fought so hard to control, a car that now symbolized everything she'd lost.